The escalation trap. Has the United States unwittingly walked into an Iranian trap? Now, of course, if you're just listening to the president, if you're listening to the Secretary of War earlier today, it sounds like if anybody walked into a trap, it's the Iranians. They have made a fatal mistake that could be catastrophic for their entire government way of life. But we have a guest on today who is going to say that actually escalation favors Iran. Now, that's going to seem counterintuitive because the balance of power is so out of whack in our favor that would seem a little counterintuitive. But as Dr. Pape, Robert Pape, who's going to be with us today, he is a professor of political science at the University of Chicago, specializing in security affairs. He's also the founding director of the Chicago Project on Security Threats and of the Escalation Trap Substack, which we're going to talk about here today. But first of all, welcome to the show. An absolute delight to have you on today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on. I watch you every chance I can, and it's because even as we have all these podcasts, you fill the lane of strategic substance, I think, better than anybody else. And it's just such a pleasure. And you have such ripple effects that your viewers may not even know. And I hear about them because I have lots of people I have taught and still teach and come to me with PhDs from the Pentagon. Oh, my goodness gracious. So the Washington value of this is off the charts. And then, of course, there's everybody else. So thank you for having me.
Well, it's really kind of you to say. And not that we want to be in the Mutual Admiration Society, but I read your work voraciously before I went to Afghanistan and Iraq during the Operation Iraqi Freedom, and then the 2 combat tours through Iraq. And man, everything you said just was validated so much with what I saw on the ground. So I was thrilled that we were able to get you on the show today. Well, listen, I know your time is limited and I've got so many things to talk to you about. Let's jump right in here. I mean, we've got a pretty good setup here. I want to show you something that was released just moments before we came on here, and that is from Senator Richard Blumenthal, who just came out of a meeting from the administration, tell them about the process, the pace of the war and where it's going to go. And just as a real quick setup here, this is on the heels of the Secretary of War this morning saying that we're winning, that everything is going in our way, and that today is going to be a dramatic upswitch. And basically, the Iran side is toast. That's what he said earlier today. Here's what Senator Blumenthal said a minute ago.
I emerged from this briefing as dissatisfied and angry, frankly, as I have from any past briefing in my 15 years in the Senate. I am left with more questions than answers, especially about the cost of the war. My questions have been unanswered. And I will demand answers because the American people deserve to know. And I guess I am most concerned about the threat to American lives of potentially deploying our sons and daughters on the ground in Iran. We seem to be on a path toward deploying American troops on the ground in Iran to accomplish any of the potential objectives here.
That is shocking. That's when I heard that, I was like, you cannot be serious. That's actually being talked, because that's rather incongruous with we're winning and things are going a good place. And Trump last night saying that the war is going to be over soon. What do you make of that?
What I think we have is a victory narrative at odds with escalation reality. And this has been going on now for over 10 days. And what you're seeing with Senator Blumenthal is he is coming out. This is not the first time he has come out of a classified briefing and had these concerns. If your listeners will go and search, they will see that several, and there's only been a few, he has come right out and he has voiced these concerns, and they are the concerns about ground presence. And I think I have not spoken with him about this. I just want to be very, very clear. However, this is exactly one of the big concerns I have as well. And you mentioned, Danny, on the escalation trap. Sunday, just a few days ago, I did an hour live briefing explaining exactly what is that concern, the connecting the dots, and glad to go through this. But we really are facing victory narrative in public by our senior leaders versus escalation reality. And that is a real problem. But we can pierce through that. We have the internet, we have you, we can pierce through this.
Well, then that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to pierce through any fog of war or disinformation, misinformation, inaccurate information, whatever, to get to what is the ground level truth and what is the most likely outcome of this war. That's what we're going to try to get to. As a lead into, you have what we want to feature on today and spend the majority of our time as a piece you just had in foreign affairs, which is, like the I guess the Bible, almost, so to speak, of foreign policy. That's where only the best people get in. And you have something featured in there right now on this escalation issue, why escalation favors Iran, which is a big eye opener for many people because they think there's no way, because obviously if it escalates, it only works in their disadvantage. That's what it may think. But I'm going to show a few things here as we work our way into this, why some of the things are going on, why this is so necessary, the information in here, and why we don't get it. Let's start off with President Trump from last night, because he was kind of lamenting in his conversation that he had, the press briefing that he had. He was lamenting why the Iranian side doesn't get it, that he's trying to give them a good negotiated deal.
And they even turned down an offer for unlimited free nuclear fuel forever for civilian purposes. We had people offering them free nuclear fuel. They weren't interested in that because they wanted to build a nuclear weapon. So instead, the regime was trying to reconstitute its weapons program at a different site. They couldn't go back to where they were, the 3 sites that we obliterated, but they were starting work at another site, a different site, different kind of a site.
Now, before I even get your comment on that, it turns out that Foreign Minister Arakchi from Iran kind of did answer the question of why they didn't listen to Trump on negotiations when he said this.
We have a very, bitter experience of talking with Americans. We negotiated with them last year in last June, and they attacked us in the middle of negotiations. And again this year, they tried to convince us that this time is different. They promised us that they don't have any intention to attack us. And they wanted to resolve Iran's nuclear question peacefully and to find a negotiated solution, and we finally accepted. But again, after 3 rounds of negotiation, and after the American team in the negotiation, said itself that we made a big progress, still they decided to attack us. So I don't think, talking with Americans anymore would be, on our agenda anymore.
So right now, that sets us up for genuine escalation, because Trump wants it over, and they're saying we're not even going to negotiate. So the only thing left is whatever's going to happen on the battlefield, at least for the time being. But to me, and this is what I want your opinion on, this really seems to set up this disparity between what we think and what the Iranians think. What is that? What is the problem with that for you?
Well, actually, I think you see President Trump and the Iranian foreign minister talking about the same thing, which is Iran's nuclear program. Now, I just want to say a couple big things and then get into some details just listening here. So the very first thing I think it's helpful for everybody to understand is, how did we even get on a trajectory of conflict with Iran in the first place? It goes back to the Axis of Evil speech in 2002, which we had intel even before 2002, that Iran was starting to acquire the material from Pakistan to enrich uranium for nuclear weapons. That was always the concern. You could date either 2001, 2002, but that's 24 years of concern about Iran getting nuclear weapons. Now, what's happened in the last year and a half or year plus is that we're teaching Iran a lesson. We're teaching Iran the lesson that the only way you're going to survive is if you have nuclear weapons. Now, for all that 24-year period, we've had some periods of negotiation. We've had periods of not negotiation. We've had a discussion of bombing. I've modeled the bombing of Iran 20 years. I do this in my class on strategy at the University of Chicago at the end of every spring. The last 90 minutes has always been the bombing of Iran's nuclear program. What are the consequences? What to expect? ... We'll talk about that. So I am very familiar with this particular case, but you really are seeing, when President Trump reveals more about the details, that the reason we're going is because Iran is dispersing its nuclear material. This is this enriched uranium that we did not get last June. And that was always likely, fully predictable, and is the beginning of what I call the smart bomb trap, which we can unpack in detail, Dan. But this is really what you're seeing. You're not really seeing those two at odds in those two clips. They're saying this is about whether Iran's getting a nuclear program, whether what's happening with that enriched material. And what you're also seeing by Iran is they've learned. We've killed their negotiators, or Israel's killed the negotiators multiple times now. Okay. So the idea that negotiated solution here is something America is really interested in. They've pretty much given up that hope, although maybe there's still a corner there we could work on.
Well, I guess if there is any difference between them, it's that at least the way he presented it, Trump seems to be surprised that they're not willing to give up that stuff just for a negotiated deal. And the Iraqi side says, like you just did, you've killed our people. Why in the world would I do that?
That's right.
So,
and what I'm trying to do with my escalation trial, I started this the week before we did the bombing. If you follow my X account, you'll see I'm predicting the Armada. I'm explaining that I've got a post with 8 million views on all this.
wow.
I mean, so this is before the bombing actually started. And I'm very much figure we're going to start doing regime change. So I'll explain how I came to all these predictions in advance in just a moment. But this is due to what I call the smart bomb trap, which is a variant of the broader escalation trap that applies to things more than simply smart bombs. So you are getting frameworks here from me, and then we can fit the evidence to it. But once you have the frameworks, it makes a lot more sense, you see.
Brilliant.
So,
Load me up in, frame me up.
yeah. So for example, everybody's been talking about for not just on your, but everybody about, oh, what's going on with Trump? He's all over the place, bouncing all over the place. You said. This is really part and parcel of what I call the smart bomb trap, which goes through stages. And I've been studying this for 30 years, Danny. As you know, Bombing Twins, all about leadership decapitation versus other strategies. I've taught for the U.S. Air Force about leadership decapitation with the people, debating them, who actually came up with the idea, including John Warden. So I know this very, very, very well. So I call this the smart bomb trap. Stage one of the smart bomb trap is hyper confidence, and actually realistic confidence, in tactical success of precision air power. The idea that when we drop the bombs, it will 90% of the time, only if the other 10% if there's a gale wind, but 90% of the time the bomb will land within 5 meters of the aim point, and that will happen over and over and over again. And that is true. That's not a fantasy of false tacticals. That's real. But it creates a false illusion of control and dominance. And I've seen this up close and personal, not just from writing. So, because I've been in the rooms with these folks. And so what you end up with, let's go back to last June. Last June was stage one of the smart bomb trap. President Trump drops those bombs on Fordo. We've been planning this for 20 years. I've been modeling this in my class, including the move to the Moab, et cetera, here. And what do I always tell my class? At the end of the modeling, we have a 90% chance of destroying the facilities of Fordo and Natanz. Israel, maybe 20%, 25%. We could do 90%. That's why we had to be involved. But that leads to strategic failure, even though tactical brilliance, strategic failure. Why? We don't get the nuclear material, the enriched material, which is 1,000 pounds of 60% enriched uranium and 10,000 pounds of 5 and 20% enriched uranium. Together, that's enough for somewhere between 10 and 16 bombs, depending on exactly how good the Iranians are at fashioning it. If they're terrible at it, it's 10. If they're masters of the universe at it, it's something like 16. So that's the actual range. But then I go further and I say, so what's going to happen then the days after? The days after, we're going to get afraid, because we're going to be afraid of dispersal. And this has been going on really even since the day before the bombing started. I can tell you that story in a minute. But as that months go on, I say this is going to lead to stage two of the smart bomb trap, regime change. Because we're going to discover that we don't know where that material's dispersing. As President Trump just said, it could be fashioned into weapons in all kinds of hundreds of places. They may know one or two, but it really could be many hundreds of places. And so we're going to think, well, the only way we could nip this in the bud is we got to take out the regime, which of course has been an illusion. Air power has never done that successfully in 100 years. I'm the guy who studied all those cases. That's what my book's all about. And so this leads to the next stage of failure. Now we're in stage 2 of the smart bomb trap. That's why I saw it coming, and why I knew it would be leadership decapitation, where we actually did drop the bombs again. We did kill the leaders, 100% tactical success, or near 100% tactical success, and strategic failure, you see. And that failure is, again, and President Trump's explaining it, that nuclear material's dispersed and we don't know where to get it. How are you going to get it, Danny? This is what I lay out in the briefing on Sunday for the big PowerPoint presentation to really go into this. So the only way you're going to get this is you got to put people on the ground. This is a ground mission. Okay. And those folks, when you start talking about putting people in the ground to dig through Fordo, Esfahani, we've bombed it. That means they got to dig through all this stuff. They're going to be there for days, maybe weeks. They're going to have to go to a bunch of different sites probably here. We don't know for sure where all they might have to go. Because again, you're talking about 10,000 pounds of 5 and 20% enriched, 1,000 pounds of it, and this stuff can be scattered in penny packets all over the country. So the bottom line is, this is what Senator Blumenthal almost surely is being briefed, because this was always going to happen once we dropped those bombs on Fordo. I published a piece, by the way, in Foreign Affairs just before the bombing of Fordo happened, called Israel's Futile War. I predict this exactly before the bombs fall. I lay out exactly what's going to happen. And that's why I've been so sure and confident. It's not because I have any intel. I don't read Trump's mind. I just see this unfolding. And it is unfolding step by step into the smart bomb trap. And this is what is leading us to be more likely than not, and maybe even more than 60 or 70% likely to have those boots ultimately going in on the ground.
And if with that as a caveat there, I'm going to show you here a soundbite from General Jack Keane, who seems to repudiate that and says, no, I think we can get this from the air. Watch this.
We're systematically taking away all of their offensive capabilities, and that takes time. I mean, it is the ballistic missiles, it is the drones, it is finishing up the recovery effort that they have underway for nuclear. Certainly, wherever they have enriched uranium, we either want to take it away from them or we want to destroy it. One or the other. And then what the Israelis are working on is all the organizations that sustain the regime, that give them the life, that give them the ability to go on. The IRGC, the Baja militia, which represses the people, the police infrastructure. They're working systematically on that.
Yep.
And that is absolutely critical, along with the weapons. So we want to take the weapons away. We want to take the ability to build new weapons in terms of manufacturing capability, and then take the organizations away that sustain the regime. We get that done. They're about finished.
Yeah, that's about it. All you got to do is take all that stuff away. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, so with all due respect to General Keane, and just so the audience knows, and Danny, you may not know this, but I have been debating four-star generals in classified briefings for many decades on different airplanes. It started in 1995 when I was teaching for the U.S. Air Force. I had an SITK clearance. We were debating what to do with bombing strategy for Bosnia. And I published a piece, John Mearsheimer and I published a piece together in the New Republic, laying out a strategy. And you will see that I was a proponent in public for this thing called hammer and anvil, air power, ground power alone, except in this case, I was pushing for a Muslim Croatian ground offensive with our air power, which in fact happened. And that's what happened with deliberate force against the arguments for leadership decapitation. And if you look at the target set for deliberate force, September 2 weeks in September 1995, you'll see virtually not a single leader is hit, and that is what ended the Bosnian Civil War. Had we done leadership decapitation here, as we do in Kosovo later on, was not part of that debate, we will probably end up the smart bomb trap and catastrophic failure, as happened in Kosovo. So what you are seeing here is with the general, what he's saying is, well, we just want to take out their missiles. Well, those missiles are not the key issue. The key issue is the enriched uranium. You can take out 100% of those missiles, and you're not getting that enriched uranium. And that enriched uranium can be put in radiological weapons, on drones. It can be put in mines. It can be later given to Houthis. It can be given to Hezbollah. It can be that material can then possibly be fashioned, even under all this bombardment, into nuclear weapons over time. So what he's talking about is he may sincerely believe it. I'm not saying he's trying to play a trick on us. What I'm saying is he's missing the core. He's looking at the periphery. Think about this as an archery target. The core of this is always been for 24 years, that enriched material. And that is what President Trump is focusing on. And this is why I think he got led into the smart bomb trap. And now he's trapped. See, he's lost control. That's the big thing that happens in the smart bomb trap. We want to have the illusion, the belief that we control. That's what Pete Hegseth is trying to say.
Yeah.
We control everything. No, the smart bomb trap is we are now trapped by the smart bomb trap.
Well, and let me ask you, you mentioned a second ago that you'd been modeling this for many, many, many years, and you'd foreseen a lot of this stuff coming on. What did your analysis and your simulation show, and how is that lined up with what we've physically seen?
Well, you would see, again, I hate to keep pushing into a PowerPoint, which we don't have here, but the bottom line is that you get to stage 3, which is what I call limited territorial control. So we did not have enough force to occupy all of Iraq when we took Iraq in 2003. You probably know this very well. Your listeners may not know that we just didn't have the troops to control 25 million people. And that's why it went, the hornet's nest just, well, we basically have roughly the same number of troops. And now you would have to go in and deal with 92 million people. And so we have nowhere near the ability to go in and do but we might try. But
by the way, that was 300,000 troops that you talk about being insufficient really for even all
if you're
of
really
Iraq.
Going to control, if you're going to control the big cities, I mean, just the 10 big cities of over 1 million in Iraq, I don't even mean all 92 million. You're going to use every single body we got, and that's not going to be enough. And what is that going to start to knock the door on? That you see right away where that could head. Okay, so this is why they're all saying, oh, but that's not the actual way this is going to happen. The real way is what they're telling Senator Blumenthal most surely. Okay, which is there's going to be a limited territorial control mission. They're going to send maybe the 82nd Airborne. That's 5,000 personnel. Okay, it's not 300, and they're going to try to control a perimeter here, and think about this as controlling a perimeter about like the size of the south side of Chicago. Okay, they're not going to control a perimeter of 2 feet. Okay, it's not going to be a little office they're going to control, because they're going to need to really control that perimeter. Well, what's going to happen is then they're going to start to think about they're up against 1 million people here who have weapons, and just about the only people that have weapons in Iran are the bad guys. And so you think about this for a moment. How would you feel if you're one of those 5,000 that you're suddenly put in the middle of this sea of 1 million, and you have all the possibilities coming at you? You can see how this can become really, really concerning to somebody like, again, I'll just, without even seeing the briefing, Senator Blumenthal, he's kind of thinking about what are we doing here? Are we setting ourselves up for a Tet offensive? I mean,
so what did your simulation show? What did the bombing accomplish in your simulation?
The bombing did exactly what you are seeing. We destroyed the facility of Fordo and Natanz as industrial enrichment sites, meaning that you could enrich vast quantities of uranium. However, we destroyed it last June when the vast quantities were already produced. You see, we do it too late. You see, so it's already been done. So that's why the Iranians are not saying, well, we need another Fordo. No, they're not. In fact, they're happy to trade away the Fordo because it's basically yesterday's news. It's been there, done that, don't need it anymore. The issue here is the enriched material inside the country. Now, with the Obama deal, which I know you've talked a lot on your show about here, the big part of the Obama deal is just about every pound, not quite every pound, but almost every pound was taken of that enriched material was taken out of the country, and all that was left was not enough for even a third of a month. It was just not enough. But Trump broke the deal on his own, May 2018. And from that moment, it's been pedaled to the metal by the Iranians all the way through the Trump administration 1, Biden 2, back to Trump 2. Okay. And what you are seeing is, if you drew the drop curve, you will see that they have enough for, again, material for 10 to 16 bombs over periods of months. It's not a period of a day or a week. Okay, so this is also hyperbole. But
we've actually had Ted Postal on the show, and he came to that exact conclusion July of last year.
Oh yeah, I watched Ted's briefing very well, and I think Ted called it just right. The elbow problem and all of that was all this is all well known. See, we've been studying, and now what we're learning is the Iranians have been planning too for 20 years. So that's why their regime here, we knock out and kill all those leaders, not just the supreme leader, but we're up to now, 49 leaders, some big number of leaders here, and they're prepared. They have their mosaic plan. They are prepared. And the idea that we're going to get in there and just keep knocking off we may kill the next supreme leader here, but you're going to have to go thousands deep just in the political leader, the most senior leaders here, and they're going to be dispersed, and you're still not really going to solve the problem. This is really a wicked problem to solve. Once you understand what solving it means is getting the enriched uranium. If you don't get that enriched uranium, you can have Thomas Jefferson himself come back from the grave and run Iran, and you have not solved the problem.
Well, and I think we complicate the problem for a couple of different reasons on top of everything you're talking about here. I'm going to get into at least 4 key parts of this foreign affairs article you wrote in a minute, because I think it's so vital for where we may be going next. But there's 2 things I want to ask you about before we get in there, because I think they have to do with how we're going to engage with all this and how we're going to deal with the information you were going to talk about. First of all, I want to show Lindsey Graham here, because he's talking about categorizing the Iranian people as a monolith, and not really a good one at that.
We're fighting people, the Ayatollah and his son, who did not fall far from his father's tree. They're religious Nazis. Nobody believed Hitler wanted to kill all the Jews and create a master race. They were wrong. People have miscalculated the Ayatollah and this regime for a very long time. Barack Obama and Joe Biden were fools when it comes to Iran. What did Donald Trump do? He spoke them out. They do not want peaceful nuclear power. They want a bomb to purify Islam, to destroy the state of Israel, and come after us. They're religious Nazis, and Donald Trump proved.
So let's just ask point blank. Do you believe, from all of your study, that the Iranian people just want a nuclear weapon to purify Islam and kill all the people in Israel?
No, because they've had 25 years to do it. And what you saw is they cut the nuclear deal. And then after we broke the deal, and we saw the evidence that they had stuck to their deal. All this idea that they are breaking it secretly just wasn't true. And we saw that for years. That's why it took them so long to get to this point after Trump broke the deal. It took them 8 years to get to this point, not 2 years or 2 months here. But what you're really seeing with Senator Graham there is you're not seeing strategy at all. This isn't a strategy discussion of means, ends, what's the story, how you get to the end point. It doesn't have any of that. What this is rhetoric to normalize political violence in the body politic in America. So we become used to political violence and used to what may happen, killing lots of civilians in Iran. here. And so this is an issue called the normalization of political violence. And Danny, this is another thing. You and I haven't talked in a long time, but in September, I have a huge book coming out on this subject of the normalization of political violence, which we won't get into here. And I'm madly trying to do the copy edits right now, but I can't because we're having the war right now. So it is coming out. It's coming out September 12th. Here, and it will be available, Amazon over the summer with the links and all that here, but it's about the normalization of political violence in our body politic and what that really means to America. Here, and this is really what Lindsey Graham is doing. He's made it's like it's like the frog in the pot that increased the boiling water, and you don't really notice it because it's becoming normal. We're crossing thresholds here that are tripwires, and we're just not even noticing. And we kill 175 kids at the school. We burn them to death. Here with this tomahawk, good chance, we don't know for sure, but good chance this is AI gone amok, and we just kind of brush this off.
Yeah, that is we've actually talked about that, the normalization of death. I didn't know it was actually as insidious as you describe here. I hope it's not intentional. I hope it's just foolishness, although it's bad either way. Second thing I want to talk about first, before we get into your article, is the attempt by Benjamin Netanyahu to use his bully pulpit to reach out to the Iranian people and say, you know what, I'm your hero and I'll save you if only you'll let me.
Our aspiration is to lead the Iranian people to cast off the yoke of tyranny. Ultimately, it depends on them, but there is no doubt that through the actions taken so far, we are breaking their bones, and we are not done yet. If we succeed alongside the Iranian people, then we will bring about a permanent end, and I know such things exist in the life of nations. We will bring about a change.
Is there any historical example you can think of where a foreign power goes in to destroy the governing leadership and the military capacity of a country, and then the people say, thank you, sir, for coming in and rescuing us, and we're going to live in peace with you from now on?
No, he's Netanyahu, like Trump, is up against the weight of history. So states have been trying to produce regime change through this bottom-up popular revolt for over 100 years. I study all these cases. And it has, and I'm going to choose my words carefully here, it has never worked. And there's a reason why that it hasn't worked, Danny. It's not just simply we haven't run the experiment enough. When you read my work, you'll see we've done this dozens of times before the smart bomb age, during the smart bomb age. We tried to kill Gaddafi with the very first smart bombs, April 1986. We kill his daughter, we kill parts of his family, we just barely missed him. And what happens? He lashes back and downs Pan Am Flight 103, killing 271 civilians, 190 Americans, and retaliation. It was catastrophic failure here. So why does this happen, though? Why does it fail so? We don't have too many 100% rules here. And of course, there may be some tiny chance it could work. I don't want to say it's a mechanistic law, but here's why. It's because before the bombs fall, Danny, you have a two-actor game. You have the society and the regime, and there's a gap. And you look at America today, Trump's at 38-40% approval. There's a society Trump gap. But you bring in a foreign power, especially a foreign big power like America here, and then we start talking regime change, we drop bombs, we start killing. What you're doing is bringing in the third actor and you change the game. It's a game changer. It's not just the pre-war trends in intel. That's all now almost gone, because you've changed the game politically. And this is what I've been teaching here in my work for a long time, 25 years, both in the Air Force. I just gave a talk to the Army War College a few days before the bombing kicked off. I may give more talks here to the military. And the bottom line here is that it's about, the problem here is the bombs change the political game inside of the target. It infuses nationalism inside the target because they may not like their leader, but do they really want to be run by Donald Trump out of the Oval Office and just decide he picks the leader, as he's clearly saying he wants to do, and he'll kill his way there if necessary? this is not gonna work. And basically what you're seeing, Danny, is it's a self-defeating strategy. It's not just the strategy hasn't been tried enough and we've been unlucky and we didn't get the intel. I've debated these folks for decades here. John Warden, Dave Deptula, oh my goodness gracious. Since 91, 92, I've been debating them and all these different, done it in front of the German Air Force, the Norwegian Air Force, not just, anyway. And so all these excuses why it doesn't work, we've tried them all. We've fixed all those little holes over time here, and it still doesn't work. And the reason is from what I'm saying. The bombs produce game-changing nationalism inside of the society that fuses the society and the regime closer together. It doesn't make it perfectly wedded, but closer together here. And what that does is means the strategy itself is self-contradictory. It's self-defeating. And again, I don't want to make it an iron law. I don't believe in that. I believe in distributions. But my goodness gracious, when you have a distribution of 100% over 100 years, and you're dealing with dozens and dozens of cases by different countries, different actors, different presidents, you got to start to understand the problem is probably with the strategy inherent to the strategy.
And so how do you come down on what happened in Venezuela? Because it seems to me that Trump because he refers to this all the time, thinking, well, it worked over there, we want it to work over here. What are the differences?
He gave up his strategic objective, which was the oil in Venezuela. So this wasn't about just getting Maduro. So we need to go back and look at we need to not look at and be mesmerized by tactics, Danny. We need to see that there was a goal. What was Trump's goal with Venezuela? It was to open the oil spigots, which had been closed for many, many years. If you look at the curves, you'll see Venezuela produces far less today than it did decades ago. And so his goal was to open it up. Well, what I said, and I said most of this on my X account, is this is never going to happen. And it's never going to happen because Venezuela is primed for resistance. And those oil fields are perfectly positioned for guerrilla warfare here. And so the idea you're going to get those civilian contractors to go in and they're not going to go. And they're not going to go because they want a paycheck, not a bullet. And I said this almost from the moment Maduro was snatched, and you can watch this unfold on my X account in those posts. And you'll see that even before, I was saying this, even before, the oil execs themselves on that Friday in the Oval Office look at Trump right in the face and they say, Mr. President, we're not going. Well, that's the moment then things got a lot calmer in Venezuela. Because now you have the same Maduro regime. You took one person out and you got the same corruption with the same money going to the same people, maybe a little bit of money here going to some of the people Trump picks, but not very much. And the bottom line is he gave up his strategic objective.
Yeah.
That happened. And somebody needs to explain this to him. He may
good luck with that.
Well, I just say I've advised every White House from 2001 to 2024, that even the first Trump White House. I've never met President Trump, but I do have to say there are times when I do hear him and I do think he may really not understand what happened here. And this may be the price of now surrounding yourself with yes people here who basically, when they want the analysis, they listen to President Trump and then they try to fit the facts to his analysis as opposed to what actually happened here. And this is where I think leaders of all types get into trouble, not just simply this one. But that's what I think about this case. So the Maduro case, I think, is a good case in point. It was stage one of the smart bomb trap, but then he gave it up. And if he decides to go to stage two and actually do regime change, he might, of course, to get that oil in Venezuela. Then we're right back in.
Right. Yeah,
I said is coming down the pipe.
I have this on your point there. You just talk about who he's surrounding himself with and who he's listening to. Check this out from last night.
In my opinion, based on what Steve and Jared and Pete and others were telling me, Marco, so involved, that I thought that they were going to attack us. I thought they would, if we didn't do this at the time we did it, I think they had in mind to attack us.
So he's listening to his son-in-law and to his business partner in retail or buying and selling of properties. I'm not sure that's the guys you really want
My view is he's a black belt when it comes to domestic politics, mano on mano. I mean, he took out that entire flank of Jeb Bush and company in 2015 and 16 surgically. Like a surgeon, he took them down. Then he took down Hillary Clinton like a surgeon. He lost to Joe Biden, and that's because they went centrist here. But then what happened is January 6th didn't take him down. It made him stronger. He's been a political black belt, I think, of the 5th degree. He's up there with the best of times of Bill Clinton and Obama here when it comes to politics. That said, that's not the same as strategy when it comes to military affairs or political violence. And notice he gets himself in trouble in Minneapolis, which was a big fiasco, and that's why he had to drop some heads. So my view on President Trump is that he's really excellent at what he does, and people who say he's a moron are just completely fooling themselves here. But he's excellent at one thing. He's excellent at the politics, the mano-a-mano politics. This doesn't make him a good strategist when it comes to political violence.
And that's why it's important that he has the right person to listen to.
Or he won't listen to him even. So again, he may be in the smart bomb trap where he thinks he's in control.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not saying if you listen, I have no illusion, Danny, that if I talk to him, that he would just say, "Oh, thank you, Professor Pape." Now, no.
I do know that people have told him the right thing, that he has not.
I would still tell him the right thing.
I believe though that he is starting to dawn on him that he's in a trap right now based on his activity the last 12 or so hours. Listen, I know we're running low on time, and so I want to get to these issues from your article because I think they're so important. I mean, the headline itself is why does escalation why escalation favors Iran? And I want to look at several things. First of all, this you wrote, Iran strikes cannot be dismissed as acts of scattered retaliation, the flailing lashing out of a dying regime. Rather, they represent a strategy of horizontal escalation, a bid to transform the stakes of the conflict by widening its scope and extending its duration. Such a strategy allows a weaker combatant to alter the calculus of a more powerful foe, and it has worked in the past to the detriment of the. What is the horizontal escalation, and how does extending the duration, which again seems counterintuitive, seems like they'd want to get this over with quick, but you're saying they want to extend the duration and expand horizontally.
What horizontal escalation is all about, and this was a topic I was going to study before I got into air power in 1985, but anyway, that's another story. What horizontal escalation is all about is where the actor, and it's often the weaker actor here, but it doesn't have to be, the actor deliberately spreads the conflict to beyond the original battlefield, and does this in a way in order to produce political results to its advantage. That's what horizontal escalation is here. Now, what is happening though in this strategy? What Iran is doing is, I don't want to paint them as 10 feet tall. They're not. I don't want to paint them as brilliant black belts. They're not. But they're adopting a good strategy. It shows me they've been studying for some time, because their goal to me with this horizontal escalation strategy seems to be targeted at the soft underbelly of America that's always been America's weakness since the Vietnam War, which is to turn America's hope for quick and decisive victory into prolonged conflict. This is how we lost the Vietnam War. We never lost the battle, we lost the war. And we lost the war because after 58,000 dead in the Tet Offensive here, this looked like a forever war, no end in sight. And this was turned out to be the political disaster. Well, our opponents, ever since, have tried when they could to turn things into a protracted war. And that's what you're seeing with this horizontal escalation strategy. Now, Iran here looks like they didn't just have a good idea, but they've been thinking about their means for this. So notice the use of drones here, which they've had for years now. They built 55,000 of these drones, gave them to Russia for Ukraine in 2025. They haven't really used them like this before. And what are those drones? They're mini precision weapons. We are up against, for the first time in history, 2 precision air forces going toe to toe. We have not really seen that. Not barely. It's happened maybe, the first maybe is really Ukraine and Russia, but here It's really happening for, I think, the first time in a big way. And it's what you're seeing with Iran is it's that horizontal escalation strategy designed to prolong the war, to go after our soft underbelly of our politics can't really withstand that. And they're using the idea of precision attack, coordinated. It's very surgical. They understand the nodes. And what they're doing, Danny, is they're using the concept of parallel attack that we developed in the 90s. The precision people, John Warden, Dave Deptula, they developed the concept called parallel attack, and they taught the world. They were teaching everybody how to do parallel attack, the Israelis, the French, the Brit, I mean, everybody. And I know because I was debating all these folks at the same time here. And what happened is the Chinese have learned it. It's Iran. What are they doing with all this intel they're sucking up? And this isn't even classified. They have been, what they're doing is parallel attack, and they're trying to drive wedges in these different nodes that they're hitting. I have a paper on this in the Substack, and they're trying to drive wedges here where they're trying to separate the allies from America and Israel, basically to break the counterbalancing coalition we've been trying to build with the Abraham Accords against Iran. So they have it's very intelligible here. Again, I don't want to paint them as 10 feet tall, but they've really got quite a solid strategy here, and it may well work in terms of weakening the coalition. It may not hold up. We don't know.
I'm sorry. Let's move to the next, Gary. I want to skip ahead to number 3 because this is critical. The issue of time. The final dimension you said here of Iran's strategy is time. The longer multiple states feel pressure, the more that politics both within and among regional states can intensify the conflict. Without a version of NATO in the Middle East or a single American general effectively running the military operation by Iran, there is a risk of wires getting crossed. The U.S. officials, for instance, floating the idea of stoking ethnic rebellion in Kurdish parts of Iran, etc., going on down the path here. Does time benefit the most? Is America with our more weapons and bombs, or Iran with its strategy?
It absolutely, in this case, heavily, I would say, benefits Iran, because the more time goes on, the more Iran can take its propaganda, which may have a lot of reality to it, that this has been a war to help Israel expand and conquer Muslim territory here, and then marry that with the parallel attack and the horizontal escalation campaign. And you put those two things together, then what's really occurring, it's not just causing the Arab states to pay costs, it's the publics who are ultimately going to pay costs, because the leaders are going to eat high on the hog. And so what the publics are going to start to have to ask themselves is, why are we paying costs to help Israel expand territorially? Now, those Sunni publics may not like the Shia, but I guarantee you, from everything we know, they don't like the Israelis. They don't like them. That's worse. So to have, to replace the Israeli conqueror here, or hegemon here, this is where this is the real break point. And the problem for the Arab states is the Sadat problem. You see, Anwar Sadat, the president of Egypt, cut the deal, Land for Peace, in the Camp David Accords in 1978. And then in 1981, at a military parade, by his own security, they stopped right in front of his booth in the military parade, and they shot him dead. And this is the problem here the Arab leaders face, which is the real pressure here from below is silent pressure. And I guarantee you, Sadat didn't think he was dying that day. So this is really a serious problem. As time goes on, the Arab leaders will just face more and more Sadat problems.
And so, Gary, let's jump to number 5 here, because this is really the bottom line here. Whether this conflict is merely a contained episode or becomes a prolonged strategic setback for the United States, I suppose you mean potentially a la Vietnam, will depend not on the next volley of missiles, which Secretary Hegseth is counting on, as he said this morning, but on whether Washington recognizes the enemy's unfolding strategy and responds with one of equal clarity. Is there a strategy at this point that we can adopt, clear or otherwise, where we're at right now? I mean, if we're in the missile trap right now, if we're in the traps you're talking about, is there a way out?
So if I'm speaking here, and Danny, I suspect there may be folks that will get this to the White House, because you are really that what followed. You have really excellent analysis here. I would still go back. I would say, President Trump, the thing to do here is to go back to the deal that you rejected on the Friday before the bombing. You see, the Friday before the Saturday bombing, 3:15, he's meeting in the White House with the negotiators, and there's a deal on the table here the Iranians will do, and it may even be a sweeter deal than the Obama deal that the Iranians will accept. And after all, President Trump is the deal maker, right? So what I would say to him is, okay, look, this is going to be harder now, of course, because you've already seen what the foreign minister of Iran is saying. But what you should do, the best thing you could do for yourself, for your party, and above all for the country, is to go back to the negotiating table. And then in order to do that, though, Danny, he's going to have to tell Israel that they can't bomb again and keep expecting American support. You see, because if what happens here is Trump changes and Israel just keeps going about the business of killing leaders, because they're the ones who killed the supreme leader. You see, Trump was also here being fed the news that Israel was about to do this, whether Trump cared or not. Well, this is not going to work. You see what I mean? So this really is, if we're going to get out of this here, and I don't think the odds are good we can. I think it's actually quite remote. You have to go down to the negotiation road. But in order to do that, you're going to have to go the Israeli road. And what you have to do, you might have to say Israel's going to have to join the NPT. Now we're talking. Now we're talking with a real deal that the Iranians might listen to. And of course, you can see there'll be real X to pay for this on the political front. So I realize I'm not here to talk politics, Danny.
You're here to talk
that's not my lane. I'm here to talk strategy.
And this is working. And with good leadership, it could be made to work too, even though it would make a lot of people
again
angry.
I want to say President Trump, he is the art of the deal. He has done more deals and more things than a lot of people say. Who thought he would stop the genocide? Who thought the genocide in Gaza could be stopped? I don't think there's a single person who thought that could happen. And who did that? Donald Trump. And I'm not saying it's going to stay stopped. I'm not saying that, but I talk to a lot of people here, and I'm just telling you, a lot of people hate it when I say that. And I'm sorry they hate it when I say that. But the truth is, we need to understand, are we out to stop a genocide, or is it just all about bashing Trump? And I just think that we stopped a genocide or a building genocide, describe it that way. Yeah. And the one who did the most to do that, and that's what I would tell them in the White House. You did something before nobody else thought you could do. Here's the art of the deal, getting back to Iran. And it's a lower probability here, but these are the pieces you have to wield together. And and the reason to try this, Danny, is otherwise it's that ground force trajectory I'm talking about.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. So I know you've only got about 2 minutes before you have to bail out. What is coming next, based on your experience, based on these simulations you've done on the past, based on all the things we just showed here?
I think we're gonna reach the Rubicon here in about 2 weeks, because we're gonna run out of targets. You see, and this is what happened in the first Gulf War, and I know this in great detail about what happened. So we could still bomb things, but we basically were rebombing, making the rubble bounce, and that's when we had to start the ground war. Okay, so what's going to happen here is, again, and I say this with again, I know people think, how can you do it? Well, I've studied these so much. There will be target sets, and there will be intel. They will have developed targets. They will have second, third tier targets, but we will run out of those targets. Now, we can go back and, for symbolic reasons, make that rubble bounce, so we can make it appear as that. But everybody in Washington will get all the leaks, and everybody's going to know we've really run out of targets. That's the point where we got to decide, Nanny, are we going to let this regime or even a failed state, assume you broke the state, okay? Are we going to walk away with all that nuclear material floating around Iran? Imagine, let's assume that regime is broken, okay, but it's a failed state like Libya. What do you think Libya would be like with 1,006? And Libya is what, 6 million people? This is 92 million people. I mean, so you're talking about a Libya with a loose nuke material problem like we've never seen before. And that is the dream here you're hearing people like Lindsey Graham say they want this to be the dream. I don't think that's the dream, and I surely hope Donald Trump has closed the border. because
Yeah.
my goodness, we're going to be putting troops on the border for
By the
sure.
way, do you think do we have accurate intelligence, as far as you know anyway, where these 400 something kilograms of material is?
No, that's the whole problem. If we had it, we would have sent in SEAL
Probably
Team
already done
6
it.
and Delta. We would have gone in. Oh no, for sure. No, if this was a problem for 12 guys, oh no. And if of course, that's the Bin Laden raid. If this was a Bin Laden style raid, we'd have done this a long time ago. The problem is, as I say from the modeling, you don't know, and every week that goes by, the error band expands, the radius of possible dispersal expands. And this is the fundamental problem with why bombing Fordo and Natanz set you into the smart bomb trap. And this is what and apparently there was no one there to tell him this, or he heard it and didn't do it. But this is not just about regime change. It's not just about following Israel. This is about nuclear material in ways we've never really confronted before. And it's a lot of material.
It is. Well, listen, we really appreciate. I know you're out of time.
I gotta go. Yeah.
Just send people to the escalation trap on Substack. Do follow that. We definitely will. And appreciate you coming on today.
Oh,
definitely look forward to having you back
so
again very
much,
soon.
Danny. I really enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we appreciate you guys too. Be sure and like and subscribe if you haven't done that. And folks, we will look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Daniel Davis Deep Dive. You know, we don't have sponsors because we hate to hit you over the head with ads. I don't like them. So show a little love back. Subscribe, like, and send this to somebody you care about.